Given that Kevin Durant is one of the greatest players ever traded, let alone traded mid-season, much of the discussion stemming from the deadline week blockbuster has focused on the Suns. After all, Phoenix added one of the best hoopers of his generation to a team already featuring Devin Booker and Chris Paul, instantly becoming Western Conference favorites. The other end of the trade was less glamorous, as the Brooklyn Nets were on the losing end of a deal that included a generational superstar only days after the team also traded Kyrie Irving. But what if I told you that in trading two stars, the Nets have set themselves up to land another star? The NBA's 2023 deadline week finally brought an end to the tumultuous KD and Kyrie era in Brooklyn. Less than 4 years after the Nets' 2019 free agency coup launched what was supposed to be the most prosperous period in franchise history, the team said goodbye to Irving and Durant with only one playoff series win to show for their partnership. It was no doubt a sobering week in Brooklyn, but perhaps it was also cathartic for the franchise to finally be done with all of the drama and flakiness Kyrie and KD brought to town. General manager Sean Marks has rebuilt the Nets from the ashes before, which eventually led to the acquisitions of Durant and Irving only a few years after Marks inherited one of the worst situations for an executive in NBA history. This time he has even more of a head start. In trading Durant and Irving to Phoenix and Dallas respectively, the Nets acquired, deep breath, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, unprotected Suns first rounders in 2023, 2025, 2027, and 2029, a first round pick swap with Phoenix in 2028, an unprotected Mavericks first rounder in 2029, and second round Mavs picks in 2027 and 2029. They also took Jay Crowder off the Suns' hands, then rerouted the disgruntled veteran to Milwaukee to snag a couple extra second round picks.
That's a lot.
So where does that leave the Nets? Honestly, in a pretty good spot. Brooklyn has a ton of depth, with head coach Jacques Vaughn able to utilize a versatile roster that's about 12 deep with legitimate rotation talent. The Nets could use a traditional center to bang with the league's biggest bodies, but this team has an enviable combination of shooting, length, and defensive upside. The Nets also now have a promising collection of young talent, with Bridges and Johnson joining 23-year-old Defensive Player of the Year candidate Nick Claxton and 21-year-old Cam Thomas, a sophomore guard who recently exploded for 134 points over a 3-game span. It kind of feels like 2019 all over again in that the Nets have a fun, competitive, energetic group that would serve as the perfect supporting cast for a game-changing star. Now they just need to go find one. Having desirable players on good contracts helps. Johnson is due for a new deal off of his rookie scale contract this summer, and Claxton can hit free agency in 2024. But the Nets' only bad contract is the Ben Simmons albatross the team took on when James Harden was shipped to Philadelphia only a year into the Harden-Durant-Irving experiment. A deal that included Brooklyn acquiring first-rounders from the Sixers. Meanwhile, Bridges, Finney-Smith, Claxton, and Thomas will combine to make just $46 million next season, with Bridges, Thomas, and DFS all locked up through at least 2025, and Johnson only a restricted free agent this summer.
I think those numbers sound pretty great.
Anyone who's paid attention to the recent hauls teams have commanded in star trades knows that you need draft picks. A lot of them. Well, luckily for the Nets, after trading Durant, Irving, and Harden over the last 12 months, Brooklyn now owns 11 first-round picks over the next 7 years, 7 of which they fully control, with many of those first-rounders presenting potentially juicy opportunities as stars in Phoenix and Dallas either age out or skip town. Now, usually when a team stocked with young talent and picks signals a reset by trading its best players, we'd assume they're going to build through the draft and find a way to tank to the bottom, which wouldn't make them a realistic landing spot for the next disgruntled superstar. But the Nets are in a unique position. You see, of all those first-rounders in Brooklyn's possession, very few of them are the Nets' own picks, because the team traded away a bunch of draft capital to acquire Harden back in 2021. In fact, the Nets don't fully control their own first rounder again until 2028, so tanking makes no sense in the meantime. So add it all up, and you have a team in the league's biggest market with a ton of depth, tradable contracts, young talent, and draft picks, but with an incentive to be competitive for the next half decade. If that rare combination doesn't scream star trade candidate, nothing does.
It's all coming together. It's all coming together. This is it.
It's impossible to predict who Brooklyn's next star will be, but it is fun to let our imaginations run wild. The front office likely won't rush to sell its soul like it did for Irving and Durant. So perhaps looking ahead to 2025 free agency, when the Nets can set themselves up with a ton of cap space again, is the safer long-term play. From a trade perspective, Damian Lillard's name will continue to come up in these conversations until he decides the Blazers are a grind worth running from and some merciful team out there finally sets him free. But imagine something bigger. What if things don't go well in Dallas or Phoenix? If the Mavs and Suns fail to win, and one of Luka Doncic or Devin Booker gets restless years from now after Irving, Durant, and Chris Paul leave them stranded in a lose-lose situation with no way for their teams to improve, how ironic would it be if the Nets are the team that comes knocking? Among the treasure trove of assets they'd have to surrender, Brooklyn could even offer one of Phoenix or Dallas some of its own draft picks back. Now, that's obviously just a fun hypothetical that could take years to develop. For now, the point is that the Nets are in position to quickly pivot from one star era to another. For their sake, here's hoping it goes better than the last one.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video and want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button.